You're listening to ABC Wide Bay.
Well, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Is it your alarm? Maybe a cup of coffee? What about a 6-foot-long python? Yeah, that should do the trick. Fraser Coast snake catcher Drew Godfrey recalls the moment he received a frantic call from a Hervey Bay mum over the weekend.
It was about 4:54 to be precise when the phone actually rang in the morning. So I was asleep, but we're pretty used to getting woken up by calls. But this time the lady was like really frantic, which isn't unusual as well, but it was really unusual when she said, my son was asleep and has just woken up to a python crawling across him. So I just thought, all right, well, this isn't your run-of-the-mill circumstance to turn up to.
You show up at the house and the snake, is it still in the house or what happens there?
Well, he crashed out on the lounge, funny enough, but I think it was like a sofa lounge, I think. So it was in the lounge room. When I got there, the snake had hidden behind the bed head or lounge back and the wall. So it was just hiding behind that part.
Yeah.
Though I have got snakes out of people's beds on numerous occasions before, but never while they were in there with it.
So definitely, yes, as you say, not your run-of-the-mill encounter, but overall you were able to sort of safely remove that python from the house and everyone left unscathed?
Yeah, well, it's a harmless species. Well, they can bite. They can certainly, any snake can bite, I guess, but it's not a venomous species, so no one was really in any danger, so to speak, but obviously in the first moment before you realise what's going on, I think if anyone wakes up with a snake on top of them, yeah, it's not going to be, it's like the opposite of a nightmare. You're supposed to like be scared and then wake up and everything's fine, but everything was fine. You wake up and everything's terrifying. So
a waking nightmare for sure. But
yeah.
How is business at the moment? Are you guys finding that you're getting a few more call-outs given the warmer temps this time of year?
It always gets busy this time of year regardless. I mean, we've just gone on summer, so we are coming into, right on the peak season, so we're pretty much busy all day. But what happens when it gets very dry, if you go through drought periods and things like that, and this year, I'm no meteorologist or anything, but just from listening to the news, apparently with this El Nino, we're going to have a hotter and drier summer. And when that happens, when it is hotter and drier, you'll find that snakes come closer to houses in search of water primarily, but also just for shady spots as well. So it's not that we're going to get more calls, it's just that we're going to get more calls for snakes inside people's houses and very close to their houses. For the past few weeks, it has definitely been doing that. So we've been doing a lot that are inside houses, but they're found a lot in things like laundries or kitchens where water is frequently used.
If that is the case, as we sort of head into this warm period, what is your advice to homeowners if they come across a snake of any kind in their house? What's your advice to them?
The best thing you should do if you ever see a snake, whether it's inside or out, is always just leave it alone and keep an eye on it and call the snake catcher straight away. Never approach the snake. Don't try and put anything over the top of it or anything like that. Just completely leave it alone. But if they're inside the house, there's a number of things you can do. If it is isolated to like a bedroom, you can shut the door, put a towel down under the door. But unless you have it really, really tightly in there, a snake can often get out. So you should always still keep an eye on that doorway. But if a snake pops its head out, it'll see that you're there watching it and it'll get scared and go back in. That way it keeps it in that area. And then when the snake catcher turns up, they'll know exactly where it is rather than having to search the whole house. The main moral of the story is just never touch them. Just keep an eye on them and call someone.
I mean, I guess they're like us in many ways. They're just looking for a bit of a refreshing drink and some shade in this hot period. So leave them be. And then if they're in the house, call a professional.
Exactly. Other things you can do is you can put little dishes of water out in the garden, or especially if you have a property, put a few dishes of water around the perimeter of the property. We have snakes around us anyway, so they're going to be going through your gardens and through trees. Most of them are harmless. Things like tree snakes and pythons are the most common snakes we catch, but they're going to be there anyway. So if they actually have little dishes of water in the garden, then they can stay there where they already feel safe and they can drink water. If they have no option but to come around the house, around where the hose or the aircon might be leaking out a little bit, then they're going to do those things. But if you provide them with the necessities that they need, then they're actually going to stay in the garden. So if they have a shady spot with some water, then they're going to be more likely to stay away from the house.
Harvey Bay snake catcher Drew Godfrey having a chat there to Lucy Lorimer.
You're listening to ABC Wide Bay.